We can't hear you on Zoom.
Try that.
All right, this is a test of the audio.
Got it.
Thank you very much. Morning, everyone.
Woo!
We are meeting in a hybrid fashion this morning where we have both a Zoom meeting going and a live meeting going here at Lockport. Well, in every meeting, we start with our inspiration words, and this morning it's going to be by Beth Banks. So I'm going to turn it over to Beth to inspire us this morning.
Will we not be doing the pledge? Okay.
I don't really have great words of inspiration this morning, but I am going to direct you to a book that I found very inspirational, and I felt it was appropriate to talk about the book because it is about radio waves and how radio waves inspired a young German boy to live his life better. It is called All the Light We Cannot See. It is written by Anthony Doerr. I would highly recommend it because those radio waves, that's light we cannot see. And it gave light to him. And the story interconnects a couple of young people. He ends up saving someone. And that was very inspirational in spite of wartime. I think that's a really important thing that we all kind of think about, that can we be inspirational in spite of our circumstances?
Having a while. Excellent. Thank you very much, Beth. All right, if you'd like to stand, please. Our flag is right here on our banner. And just join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Excellent. I hope everyone has a beverage. And if not, they are back there. There's some little Timbits on that one table there, so please get a Timbit or two. Enjoy your sweet tooth. If you didn't get an evaluation form, just let me know when I come back that way, and I'll try and get you one. And we're going to be able to actually pass inspirational notes and things on to the speakers. So if you haven't been with our group in person before, that's one of the things that we do during the speech. Pay attention, but occasionally, what I'm going to want you to do is to please write something down for the speaker. Maybe something that only you noticed. If nothing else, good job. It never hurts just to get told they did a good job. And one of the longest standing members of AM Lockport is our Toastmaster this week. And I know he loves to act it up. And I know he enjoys being Toastmaster. So I'm going to go ahead and let him take the meeting and do his thing. And it's weird, this table, I have to go out and around. So to hand it off, to hand the speaker the microphone off, Mr. Dave Licata, everyone. Dave Licata.
Good morning, everybody. Or I really should say good morning, hound doggers, in the language of George the Hound Lorenz. Poor Larry and Lenny have been working so hard on this new technology that I won't look at my dear friend Larry and say, okay, hit the Hound's theme song, which was this immortal piece of rhythm and blues called Big Heavy. On October 22nd, 1919, George the Hound Lorenz was born in Buffalo, New York. And that's when it all got started. He got some jobs. He was a South Park Spark up there in Buffalo. And he got sick a month before his graduation. And until the day he died, he vowed to go back to high school and finish, but he never did. He is responsible in the city of Buffalo for introducing 8-year-olds like myself to none other than Little Richard, Jerry Lee Lewis, Fats Domino, and Sam Cooke. How dull my life would be without George the Hound Lorenz. Having said that, we'll get into the job holders. Now, this is going to be very important. Here's the word of the day, and the word of the day is coming from Steve Smith, who, even though I have to remember I'm older than Steve, maybe he might remember the Hound, I don't know. There's two cameras, Steve, you can't go wrong.
Okay, you'll find me. I don't see my head. I've cut my head off.
Uh-oh.
Anyway, as I thought about today's meeting, it occurred to me that we're all coming here a little uncertain, not knowing what to expect. So it occurred to me the word of the day should be trepidation, meaning uncertain agitation or apprehension, which seemed very appropriate for this as we plunge headlong into the unknown and forge ahead. So today's word is trepidation.
Thank you so much. Tiny bit of housekeeping. Would it be easier, Len and Larry, if they delivered their jobs from where they're seated? No. Okay. Thank you so much for straightening me out on that. I did ask that question with great trepidation.
It's for the audio.
Well, I'm Toastmaster, and Jackie is our grammarian. Please welcome Jackie Kenny. Making your way up to the lectern.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. I will be, with great trepidation, listening carefully for good and not quite so good uses of grammar this morning and giving a report at the end of the meeting. Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you very much, Jackie. I'm supposed to lead the applause, but I've only got one hand, but I'll think of something before this is over. The Master, Ryan Edward Flory.
Good morning, fellow Toastmasters. It's great to see you all. It is with great trepidation that I will have one of the most unlikable jobs of Toastmasters, where I have to listen and nitpick to the words that are coming out of your mouth and remind you that we all use odds, ums, pregnant pauses, so's, likes, buts, what fors, etc. At the end of the meeting, I'll report back and tell you how well each and every one of you did.
Thanks to Len, I'm fully armed. I have my headset on, and Houston, we have a problem. I'm sorry. Oh, Mark, the first hybrid meeting ever, and you get called upon to be our tech and gesture master. Mark Campos.
Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, everybody online, good morning. I should have had trepidation in volunteering for this role as Tech and Gesture Master on our maiden voyage in hybrid meetings, but I decided to jump in and take a chance with it. My goal today will be to evaluate everybody's use of gestures, but also how we do technologically. So forgive me if that will be my emphasis today, Mr. Toastmaster.
roll of the microphone was a little rocky. That's my fault. But we never apologize. Quizmaster Carolyn Halstead, is she present or is she online?
She's on Zoom.
Online. Oh, Carol, this is our first introduction. I'm leaning over and I can see you. Please explain your job for those here and not here.
Good morning. I was unable to join you because I have an early doctor's appointment, so I have to leave my house right after the meeting. As quizmaster, I will be listening to what's being said throughout the meeting. And then at the end, I will check to see how well you've been listening by asking you a few questions.
Thank you so much. Oh, the most important person. In Toastmasters, we never critique, we evaluate. And here's the general evaluator this morning, Jill Rory. Jill.
Good morning, everyone. So good to be here again. Not that we were here before.
Welcome back.
Welcome back to in-person meetings. And hi to everybody over there. My job as general evaluator is to evaluate Dave and his meeting management and also evaluate the evaluators. And I will report back after they are done. Here you go.
He's up.
Yes, Phil. Phil. You hear us, Phil? Come in, Phil. Come in, Wilson. Come in.
What do you want?
I don't have any. Down here is Quote-Master Phil.
I don't have any trepidation. Come on.
And that's the word of the day. We want to quote.
All right. A little bit of quote. Hey, one thing I wanted to ask our tech person is, I can see myself and I can see the group. I'd like to be able to see the Toastmaster, and I don't know how to get that on there, but that either that's your fault or mine. If it's yours, if you could fix it. If it's mine, I'll figure it out.
We're working on it.
Go to my camera.
Rock and roll. Here's a couple of quotes. I wanted to have the adoration of John Lennon, but have the anonymity of Ringo Starr. I didn't want to be a front man. I just wanted to be back there and still be a rock and roll star at the same time. Kurt Cobain. Now, number 2, rock and roll music for the next downward. And then we go on to, if you try to give rock and roll another name, you might call it Chuck Berry from John Lennon. Last one, it's got a beat, you can't lose it. Any old time you use it, it's got to be rock and roll music. If you want to dance with me, Chuck Berry, rock and roll music. Mr. Toastmaster.
Incredibly, John Lennon, the first time he met Chuck Berry was on the Mike Douglas show. I mean, think about it. That's crazy that they would meet on the Mike Douglas show. But God bless you, Mike. And all the young people are going, Mike, who? Well, Jim Walkerson, it's very nice to see you live and in person. Here comes Jim with the jest. He's our jester.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. Good morning. Today's joke is called It's a Dog Joke. Upon entering the little country store, the stranger noticed a sign saying, "Beware of dog." Inside, he noticed a harmless old hound dog asleep on the floor of the cash register. He asked the store manager, "Is that the dog folks are supposed to be aware of? Yep, that's him." The stranger couldn't help but be amused. "That certainly didn't look like a dangerous dog to me." "Why in the world would you post that sign?" "Because," the owner said, "before I posted the sign, people kept tripping over them." With trepidation, I have to say this will be my last meeting for a while. I've returned to full-time employment, a temporary job for 3 months to a year, so I'll see you after that. Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster.
People that are attending, and we're trying to bring in a guest. I gave him explicit, he's on board.
John Lambert,
Yes.
he's on Zoom.
At this time, I'd like to introduce my guest. It's John Lambert, and I assured John that he'd be right at home, even though he is in Toronto. He's visiting us from Toronto, but I told him that his schoolmates and his classmates would be here. He's class of 66, but we have Jackie Forgy Kenny and Phil Russell and myself. So he is surrounded by former DeSales grads, and you'll learn more about John at the end when we call upon him. I'm so glad he made it. Welcome, John.
Hello.
And John will be happy to learn that things are timed at Toastmasters so we don't get carried away. And here's our timer, Mike Licata. John, he looks just like me, but he's taller.
Morning, Mr. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, and our guests online. This morning, my job will be to time our table topics are usually 1.5 to 2 minutes. Our speech is usually 5 to 7, but they can be any given time, anytime. And our evaluators are usually 2 to 3 minutes. Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you, Mike. Before we get into table topics, I'd like to propose a toast to the legendary radio personality and pioneer George Hound Dog Lorenz. Some called him the man who created rock and roll. Thank you so much. Without you, my life would be awful dull. Sound. All right. There's a technical huddle going on between our two tech masters, and one of them has to come up here and do table topics. This man has so many irons in the fire, and yet he pulls through every time. And we're glad to see him, even though he's wasting away on his diet. We're so proud of him. It's good old, what's your name, Larry McKenzie? That's it, Larry McKenzie.
Dave's taking a break. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to our first ever hybrid meeting. For those of you that are at home watching us from the comfort of your beds, there are actually 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, thanks, 7, 18, 19.
Oh, you didn't sign in?
I didn't sign in. There's actually 19 of us here this morning, and we want to welcome all of you that are with us. And I have the distinct pleasure of being our first table topics master, and I wore my boxing gloves for this just in case. I have a little indigestion. No breakfast, that's what it was. Anyway, donut. Oh, by the way, Mike Florio brought donuts for us, and with great trepidation, you spelled it wrong. Anyway, I have the distinct pleasure of calling on 3 of our wonderful Toastmasters this morning because I have questions that I would like to have answered. Now, our topic today was George the Hound Dog Lorenz, and he was an innovator, and he was a person that brought different things to the musical world.
with us going with our first hybrid meeting this morning, what I would like to ask, where's she at? Way in the back over there. Yes. Hello. We all know her as Margin Manor, also known as Margot. Margot, this morning, as we enter into the new world of hybrid meetings, what I'd like to ask you is, she's taking selfies. What I'd like to ask you this morning is, now Dave has always been a person that's been out around and spreading the word about Toastmasters. And this morning, with it being our very first hybrid meeting, what are you looking forward to in the future as far as Toastmasters and our hybrid meetings compared to being at home with Zoom?
Well, thank you for this opportunity. Why am I always the first table? I come to these meetings, and if you look at the minutes, who's usually the first table topics person you call on? You have no trepidation calling on me for anything, do you?
Because you're sitting in the back.
Well, I am sitting in the back. In any case, actually, I am very proud that Dave is the Toastmaster today, because Dave actually came to me through Toastmasters. You may not know this, but when I first opened, I was looking for some help. And Dave walked up to me and he said, so who's working your bar? And I told him Sarah Capon, whom some of you may remember, and Katie Banks at the time, and Krista Bastel. She goes, well, you know what you don't have? You don't have a bagel. Beverages on my life, you're hiring me. And I hired Dave. And it was one of the best innovations I could have done, because everybody knows Dave. I don't care if I send him to a farmer's market, Niagara Falls, wherever it is, the sales go up, the people comment, and now that we have Square, I get these notes. He knew a lot of trivia. Boy, he was friendly. So for me, that was one of the innovations that brought me in Margin Manor a lot of success. And now, of course, he brought me Mike, who luckily was able to take over for me last night, because my husband said, let's go out to dinner. Yay. And so those are some of the innovations. Now, in the wine business, we actually are doing a lot by Zoom now. All of our meetings, I can meet with people from all over the state. And knowing that we have somebody from Toronto, I have a feeling that's where our meetings will be heading in the future. Toastmaster.
Something that we have not done in quite a while is, and I have to show you, I have my wallet with me. It's had some wear and tear, but I do have in my wallet, let me find it. Oh dear. It's in here. Hang on there. Well, when I find it, I actually have one of these. These are these little orange tickets. And these are what are called our split club tickets. Now, we used to do that at every meeting. And a lot of people participated, and that helped with offset some of our costs. Now, with being in this Zoom world and also with our hybrid meeting, we might incur some costs. So therefore, what I'm going to do is ask a person that we always ask when we have a problem. We always go to Mom. So Mom, what I'd like to ask you is if you would please come forward. You are my next table topic person. What I'd like to ask Mom is this. Mom, what do we do next? The floor is yours. You can go anywhere you want.
Thank you, Mr. Table Topics Master. And I'll sneak the word trepidation in there again. Wasn't expecting to be called on for this morning. I think where we go next, hopefully we continue to expand our club. We get more members from more places, and we perfect our Zoom meetings and make them as welcoming as they could possibly be, as welcoming as we used to be in person. Now we will try and do that in this office space. It's a little bit different. It's a more distant kind of atmosphere. It's not walking right in off the street like we did at Friendly or at Tom's Diner. So that takes a little getting used to. I think maybe we need a sandwich board sign outside on the sidewalk so people can find us easily. And I think all of us, of course, need to extend ourselves to the people we know and love and bring them into the fold and let them know what a good time we have, whether it's in person or online. And it's nice to see all your faces this morning, as well as the faces in the room. I think it's wonderful to be here this morning. It couldn't be nicer to have everybody together again, even in a space that's not quite as warm and friendly as we might like it to be. But, you know, I think we can overcome that as time goes on and make this our new home. Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. Tabletop.
Thank you, Mom. That was awesome. Thank you, Mom, for your words of wisdom. I am going to go to one of our at-home attendees this morning, and Jen seemed like she was ready to jump on the bandwagon this morning. So Jen, what I'd like to ask you this morning, I know that this past year and a half, almost 2 years now, you've been working in the Zoom world. How, yes, she's like shaking her head, yes. So within the Zoom world, now that things are starting to go hybrid, but then again, we're not sure what's going to be happening in the future. Jen, what is your outlook to the future with Zoom or being in person? Which would you prefer?
Are you talking about Toastmasters?
Oh, in general, not just Toastmasters, everything.
Oh, you know, there are a few people that I am just fine never seeing again, particularly if you've ever shared a cube at work with someone. People at work can be quite annoying. I remember my old coworker would be like, Jen, hey, Jen, hey, Jen, hey, Jen, all day long. I think it was the first job he'd ever had. And so it is not with trepidation that I sit at home in the comfort of my own home, just mere steps from my refrigerator. I don't have to walk a mile into the office from the very far parking lot in the icy snow. So that has been quite a relief. Although at the beginning of the pandemic, my car battery certainly did die from lack of driving my car very regularly. Now it's nice to get out into the world and I enjoy seeing people, and I do hope to see all of my Toastmasters friends in person, maybe next week or shortly thereafter. But I am not looking at going back to work anytime soon. It seems to be on the back burner, and the date keeps getting pushed and pushed and pushed. So for the foreseeable future, I will happily continue to work from home. And even when we do go back, I think that going in person will only be part-time. We'll go back a couple of days a week. We'll work from home a couple of days a week. And it's actually been quite nice. You don't realize how many distractions there are in the office, even though we have distractions at home, people walking by. We used to have a gentleman whose garbage can we could see in from a conference call when we were in the office. And every time we'd be like, what's in his garbage can? And it would always be a silly topic of conversation. So those silly distractions are not there anymore. Although they might be a little bit different. We've met people's kids and their dogs and their families, and it makes it a little bit more intimate in some ways being on Zoom. Thank you, Mr. Table Topics Master.
Thank you, Jen. What I'd like to ask now is for a word master report. Word master report. How did our word of the day do? You can, we can actually catch you from right there.
Oh. Well, the word's been very popular today, but I'll save all that for later. The important part is all three of our table topics contestants used it.
Thank you so much. Now, multitasking over here. Mr. Mike, how did our time go today?
Thank you, Mr. Table Topics Master. All three of our contestants qualified on time. Margot at 1:45, Jackie also at 1:45, and Jen qualified at 2:04 with the buffer. So
thank you very much, Mr. Timer. Now, with this being our very first hybrid meeting, those of you that are in person, what I'd like you to do is fill out your ballots and we will be collecting those. For those of you that are at home, you will not see a poll for the table topics because I was over here and not over there. So what I'd like you to do is if you're at home and you're voting, you can vote for any of our three table topic contestants, and please personal message me, and then I will add that to the tally. At this time, I'd like to turn our lectern back over to the man, the myth, the legend himself, Mr. Dave Licata.
Well done, Table Topics Master Larry. Careful. I brought dredged up some memories and some situations from Table Topics. While we're doing a little housekeeping with the vote, I will do a little bit of filler. Now, a point of great pride in my life is that both George Lorenz and the Hound and myself are both alumni of WJGL Radio in Niagara Falls. He started working there January of 1948. I wasn't born until November 48, so we didn't occupy the building at the same time. Naturally, he was on the air and I was in sales. So he would have been in the control room and I'd be in my car looking for new business. He came to WJJL. He was kind of exiled from Buffalo because of the crazy music he was playing. But he got away with it in Niagara Falls. And if you go online and you do a little bit of research about George Lorenz the Hound, there are pictures of him behind the beautiful WJJL microphone. I still have a warm spot in my heart for WJJL because that was my first big boy job out of college. All right, we seem to have settled down to use the favorite bromide of AM Lockport Toastmasters. It's time for the nuts and bolts of the meeting. And our first evaluator this morning is Catherine Orr, and she's going to evaluate our first speaker, Gerald Stevens, but I'm now going to turn things over to Katie Orr.
Thank you so much. So good to see you. Thank you all for playing along with or without trepidation. We all appreciate it so very much. It is my honor to introduce our first speaker at our first hybrid meeting, Dr. Gerald Stevens. He is giving a speech, Connect with Your Audience. Mr. Timer, it is 5 to 7 minutes, a traditional length. And the member is practicing skills needed to connect with the audience. And this may be a topic that is new or unfamiliar to your club members. Are you all set, Mr. Toastmaster, with his title? Oh, his title is We're Back. Dr. Gerald Stevens. Dr. Gerald Stevens, we're back.
Good morning, fellow Toastmasters and our guests on Zoom. I'm going to go back behind the lectern so I want people to see me. We're back. We're back in person. Can I hear an amen from my brothers and sisters Toastmasters? Amen. Woo-hoo. Something new, a new hybrid format, a dawn of a new era. I'm excited. I'm excited in general about getting out and doing things again. COVID was a bitch. We had to stay at home, we have the masks. It's kind of calming down a little bit, I think. I feel like things are coming back a little bit. There is that thing called the Delta variant, I believe. However, the vaccination rates in New York, 69.3%, pretty close to herd immunity. So we're doing great in New York, and things are open. Things are opening up. I would like to get an amen also for all those loved ones that we lost. Amen. So what's new and exciting going on in the world? Well, we can travel again. That is something near and dear to my heart, that's for sure. I know Dave just came back from Hawaii. I expect a full report, maybe in a speech in the future, maybe multiple speeches. Maybe not. But I know fellow Toastmaster Jen is going to be heading out soon. She's going to head out west. Can I say the place, Jen? She's going to Yellowstone, one of my favorite places in the world. I'm going to be heading out west also around the same time, Utah, Colorado. Excited about that. So 5 parks, so that'll be fun. There are a few rules. We have to wear a mask or two, but we can do it. We can't go international. That's okay. There are a lot of cool states. So I encourage you all with proper precautions to get out and do some things. What other things have we been able to do? We can go to sporting events. The Buffalo Bills are going to be coming back, right? They got a preseason game on Friday. I went to a practice, 18,000 plus people. That was fun. Brought my 2 grandkids, played giant cornhole with pillows. They threw a ball right through the little stand they built up with a player that was reaching out. They had a great time. They had some hot dogs. They ate some food. They paid absolutely no attention to the practice, which is what I expected. They're 5 and 7. My 5-year-old granddaughter would talk to the lady behind her the whole time, talking about fashion and what she was wearing and different things. Absolutely no interest in it. Baseball came back. We had the Toronto Blue Jays. 105 years since we had professional baseball in this area. Can I get an amen? Amen. I was excited about that. I know many people have gone to that, but also the Bisons are back. So the local team, a lot cheaper, I will say. I plan to go to a couple of those games. Yeah. Nothing like enjoying a cold beer, having a hot dog, singing "Take Me Out to the Ball Game." That's America to me. What else has been happening? Well, we have celebrations that are going on now. So now we can have birthdays where everybody can come. Remember we had to do the drive-by birthdays? That was not fun, I didn't think. Thankfully, we don't have to do those anymore. People are getting together. I'm just talking to Mike. His family gets together once a week. Something positive that came out of the pandemic. Love it. That's something that I would like to try to convince my kids to do. We'll twist a few arms, maybe. So weddings. People put off weddings. Do those now. You get together. You can dance. You can't dance with someone across Zoom, I don't think. I haven't seen anybody do that yet. So that's something that brings a smile to my face for sure. What else has been going on in regards to happenings? Fairs and festivals. We've had some of those recently. Niagara County Fair just happened, right? Had some friends that went to that. Eating Corn Festival, good time. I've never been, but I hear it's amazing, so I'm definitely going to go. The Erie County Fair is coming up this weekend. A lot of people excited to go to that. Well, I can't forget the Celtic Festival since we have a few members here that are involved in that. So definitely coming up. So we get out there, you get to meet some friends you haven't seen in a while, share a smile, share a hug. Can I get an amen for that? Amen! Absolutely. Definitely some other things going on in regards to happenings in this world. What else is going on? Well, we can get to the gym now. So that's something that's different. So I was excited to get to the gym myself. I know my doctor was very happy about it. keep the waistline a little trimmer. Don't have to work out with masks. So excited about that. So in general, there's a lot of exciting things that are happening out there. And I encourage all you fellow Toastmasters to get out and do some things with proper precautions. Go to music festivals as well. There is Blues and Blues Monday. I want you guys, if you can, go out to some free stuff. Billy Joel's this weekend. I don't know if Mark Campos is going, but I'm going to be there. All right, good. Maybe I'll see Mark there. Big group of people, take proper precautions. And I encourage you all to live a life worth a story. And then when you have that story, bring it to us in Toastmasters. Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you very much. Let's applaud a little harder. I know we're rusty. We're out of practice. So much better. Good work. Our second evaluator. And it's so great. You know, he reunited with us via Zoom, but it's better to see him in person. He's got a great smile. He's a warm personality. And please welcome Michael Florio, who will come forward and talk about the second speaker. And Mike, if you have the title, that's fine with me.
And I do have the title.
Where they can see it, buddy.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
We want to get your best side, the profile.
Careful. Oh, boy,
Okay.
that's scary. It's with no trepidation that I want to introduce Tracy Farrell. Tracy will be speaking from the Level 3 Dynamic Leadership Series. And Mr. Timer, it's 5 to 7 minutes. And the speech will be about negotiation styles, and Tracy's Tracy Farrell.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. Wow, we are finally back meeting in person. We have our executive team to thank for that. I'm sure that was no easy task. There's a lot going on with a hybrid meeting. We have a large group, and trying to find a location for large groups was difficult even before COVID. Coming up with a location after COVID that's able to supply good internet and the technology that we need, no easy task. I wouldn't even want to do it beforehand. I am so glad I'm not in their shoes. But I have to tell you, I am in their shoes. I feel their pain. The Rotary Club is going through the same situation, just about like any other social club right now. We have gone from our hybrid meetings, we're currently meeting at the place of business of our vice president. And I gotta tell you, a lot of people are complaining about this location. It's this is a nice room. It's not as nice as that room. It's kind of a cafeteria looking thing. It needs some painting. There are hand-me-down chairs that we're all sitting in, and boxes are stacked to the ceiling. And people are saying, no, we don't want our Rotary Club meetings here. No, she graciously offered it to us. And I recently had to sit down in a board meeting next to the vice president and say, we need to find another location. This one just isn't working. At the same time, another member in our club graciously offered us her place of business and told her board, we're going to be meeting there next month. Oh, wait a minute. Rotary didn't say that. So we had a lot of fiascos going in with finding locations, just like Toastmasters is having, I'm sure. So how do we do this? It's a negotiation style. And I gotta tell you, first 5 minutes of negotiation is the most important part. And I'm only saying this is added to my speech because on my way into the Bewley building, I can tell you about a non-starter. I came in, Beth was right there. There was a guy headed in from me, and he's holding the door for me. And of course, I'm looking at shirts in the shops. And I was like, oh, I'm so sorry. And he's like, oh, just like a typical woman. And then he tried to make up for it and said, just like a beautiful, typical woman. Yeah, not gonna work. So Beth, I tried to walk up the stairs. And Beth's like, oh no, the stairs are locked. I'm like, oh, okay. And as we're in the elevator together, he's like, oh, is this a Weight Watchers meeting? Oh, the first 5 minutes are not going well. Talk about non-negotiables. But there are 4 styles of negotiation. Remember, the first 5 minutes are the most important. The first one is the competitive style. And that's where there's a clear winner and a clear loser. First 5 minutes are very important in this situation. But if I was in Rotary and I said, look, we're going to be meeting in the Bewley building. It's the best place. It has good, strong internet connection. That's what we're going to do. Well, that's a clear win for me because that was easy. But maybe the rest of the group doesn't like it. Maybe it's too small here. And obviously, my vice president and the other member didn't get their first choice. However, it is a kind of quick, easy thing. It cuts off all the negotiations and there's no give and take. It's quick and easy. The second style is accommodation, where everybody gets to put in their choice. Everybody gives a little bit, everybody takes a bit. In this case, we'd be sending out a survey listing 4 or 5 locations of the best, or the pros and cons of each location. And we can all vote on those best locations. Nobody's getting the perfect choice, and we're all getting in a little bit. The third is compromise. Utilizing this style, maybe I would say, look at month 1, we're gonna meet here, month 2, we're gonna meet there, and month 3 there. That would be a compromise for everybody. However, in that case, nobody's usually happy. And finally, there's the collaborative style. And that we'd have 70 members sitting down, all brainstorming. What do we want in a location? Where are we going to meet? This would probably go on forever and ever with 70 members. So, can anybody here kind of take a stab at what I chose? Don't all speak at once, but I will tell you. I chose the accommodation. Last week, there was a Survey Monkey that went out. We gave them 4 choices, and luckily they all chose what I thought was the best too. We're all meeting in a location that everybody can agree on. It was about an 85% total agreement between the whole club. And I would think that most of our members are happy, and those that aren't can live with the consequences. So by accommodating all the members of the club, we're all able to maintain friendships, get along, and agree on that with our solution. So in negotiations, yeah, we start with an ideal, end with a deal, and depending on how you negotiate is the result of your negotiation. Mr. Toastmaster.
The sound of genuine, honest applause, music to my ears after like forever. So it's good to be back. We do have a third speaker, and I want to thank everyone. I didn't have to chase anybody. I had holes in the schedule that were filled by volunteers, and this is a remarkable group, and you made my week so easy. Thank you. Evaluating our third speaker is our president, Tom Trelline. Feel free to share the title.
No problem. Thank you very much. All right, no, I'll center myself. Thank you. Okay. I had a little trepidation of coming back to a hybrid meeting because you can see that I gained not 19 pounds, but more like 19 stone. So that definitely needs a gym membership as well. Exactly. Marty's going to be talking to us from the Leadership Development Pathway with an elective project. He's going to be using an emphasis on language to increase interest and impact. So I looked that up and I said, oh, it'd be better if he was crafting a speech to express the priority of additional vernacular in an engrossing and influencing way. So that's kind of his thing he's going to be doing. Mr. Timer, it is 5 to 7 minutes. His title of the speech is Spared by the Rain. So, there, Marty? Spared by the Rain?
Thank you so much. And I believe, Marty, you want me to give a further introduction, doesn't he? Thanks to modern electronics. Here we go. Marty is working.
Dun, 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 dun.
Marty is working on the leadership development path. In leadership roles, it is important to use descriptive language In his speech, Marty will use descriptive language to generate interest, impact, and further engage the audience. And he will achieve this by explaining 3 significant things that were, scroll up, thank you, that were on his list. But he's going to focus on nature's July rain. Fellow Toastmasters, most welcome guests. Thanks again, John Lambert. It's Marty Johnson time.
Do you remember where you were on Tuesday, July 20th, 2021? Mr. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, most welcome guests. I remember where I was on Tuesday, July 20th, 2021. I was at my friend Phil's house doing gardening, something that I hold near and dear to my heart. And fellow Toastmasters, most welcome guests, I'm going to explain 3 things this morning to you that I hold near and dear to my heart that may have been spared by the rain. As I said, the first thing was started at my friend Phil's house. I was working in his flower garden, something I love to do. The reason I was there, he had asked me to help him pull out these weeds and take care of this area because he was planning on setting up a play set or playhouse for his grandchildren that would be visiting this summer. And any of you that have weeded before, you have to get dirty and you have to get on your hands and knees quite often. I was literally on my hands and knees using my hands, both hands at the same time, pulling the weeds and using my hands as balance periodically. One of the weeds was a thistle. And if any of you know what thistle is, thistle has leaves on it that are very sharp, and they're sharp like a steak knife, some of them, if you touch the tips. And there was another weed, I don't know the name, but I think it came from a bird feeder because there was a few bird feeders nearby. And this weed was 25 feet high and it was a foot round, and the root on it was bigger than King Kong's footprint. I had to get an excavator in to dig it out. Imagine that. It was implanted in the ground. The excavator came and took it out. It was a beautiful day, although the sky was slightly overcast. And I continued weeding. I was forgetting about everything else that was going on in my life that day. I felt fine. And I was having a great time. I was making great progress, and I was looking forward to clearing this area out for my friend Phil so he could put in this play set for his kids. And all of a sudden, the overcast sky turned dark gray, and I could hardly see. Then it started sprinkling. A few moments later, Phil came out and said, "Marty, I think we're going to have a rainstorm." And I looked down at the lake, and I could see the dark sky, and it looked like it was moving. I said, "Phil, I think you're right." He goes, "What are you going to do?" I said, "Well, I have a plan. I'm going to do my laundry if it rains, and I'm going to get all my tools ready. I'll bolt to the car as soon as it starts to downpour." A couple minutes later, the leaves on the trees turned backwards from the wind, and when you see that, that's a sure sign of rain coming and a storm coming. Then the deluge, the rain came down all at once, like a trough falling down from the heavens. I bolted to my car, and I went to the laundromat down in Wright's Corners. Grabbed my laundry basket, dodging the raindrops, if you will, in to the laundromat. Came back to my car and sat down, and then all of a sudden, the hail came down. And the hail came down, as many of you know, on Tuesday, July 20th. Some places it was big as a dime. Where I was, it was big as a dime. I was sitting in my car. I'm worried. Is my car going to get damaged by this hail? And I said, oh no. After about 10 or 15 minutes of the hail pelting my car, I got out and looked around and was spared by the hail. No damage to my car. I was very grateful. My laundry was finished. I went back to Phil's and finished the job that I started. It was a very great moment in that day because it was just sprinkling and I figured I might as well get this job done that I started. Excuse me. The third thing that I hold near and dear to my heart is my vegetable garden, which is right down the road from Phil's house. And I didn't immediately go there because I had other priorities at the time. And it wasn't until after Mass Sunday that I walked out into the church property and I saw a broadleaf flower, the leaf on the plant. And it looked like someone took a steak knife and drove it, repeatedly stabbed it. And I'm thinking, my poor vegetable garden. It was at that point, I got in my car, I drove down to my son's house, down the road from Phil's house, and it was with great trepidation that I slowly walked into the backyard. There's a wood pile, thank God, it's about 4 feet high because I was hesitant to look at and see if there was any damage on my tomatoes or my bean plants. I looked around, my tomatoes, oh my gosh, they survived. They survived. Next, go to my bean plants. My pole beans, they're laying on the ground, but it didn't look like they got damaged. Thank God, I was spared by the rain and the hail. Fellow Toastmasters, it might just be Irish luck with a name like Marty, but I don't think so. I think I was just spared by the rain and by the hail. And I definitely will never forget where I was on Tuesday, July 20th, 2021. Mr. Toastmaster.
Bye. All right, that's our third speaker. I want you to take a moment, and first I have to ask for a timer's report so we find out who qualified for the vote.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, and our guests this morning. All three speakers qualified this morning. Dr. Stevens at 5:57, Tracy at 6:28, and Marty Johnson came in at 6:20. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Michael. So we're going back to the paper ballot. This is wonderful. You can message or you can use the chat if you're online in the wonderful internet world. And you can vote that way by sending a message to Larry McKenzie. The Hound not only shook things up on radio, he backed it up. And for people my age, there are a few things as Buffalo is War Memorial Auditorium. He brought in the Everly Brothers. He brought in Clyde McFadder. He brought in Sam Cooke. So he was not only instrumental on the air, he worked hard bringing in all these acts. It's hard for me to say acts. I got to work on that. I have to work on my speech and diction a little bit better. But that came out AXE. I apologize. Well, no, Toastmasters never apologize. Sorry. Okay, now I'm going to introduce the general evaluator. I'm going to ask her to. Oh no, we have to introduce the evaluators. I am so rusty.
You do whatever you want.
Oh,
She
no.
can introduce us.
That's right too. Thank you. Thank you so much. I will introduce the first evaluator. Now that the vote has been taken, the timer is reset so we can time the evaluators. John, you'll be happy to know that we never criticize, we just evaluate here. This is what we're going to do. And I want to alert our guest this morning that he might see the sandwich approach where the evaluator is going to say what they liked about the speech, what can be improved in the speech, and what exactly did we love about the speech. So evaluator number one, it says here very formal. It's Catherine Orr, but I was in Poland, so I just call her Kasia.
Should come up with a better nickname for you too. I'm Tasha. Why is it taking me this many years to come up with a nickname?
Stash. He looks like a stash.
We'll have to think about that. Let's focus now on Dr. Gerald Stevens in his new era, as he said here at a hybrid style meeting for Toastmasters and Lockport. We're back. It does feel good. In some ways, I'd rather be on Zoom right now, but that's not happening anytime soon. We have so much work to do. Whether we were back at Tom's or not, we would have so much work to do. Getting back into the swing of things. It's like we did it for 10 years, some of us, at Tom's Diner. We don't do it for a year in person, and it's strange how our habits have to come back. And you gave us great, kind of encapsulated 5.5 minutes of what we've gone through in a whirlwind over the last year and coming back. What's coming back? Maybe trepidation about what's not, but what is coming back and focusing on those silver linings. Your enthusiasm speaks volumes of you as a person and you as a chapter member, you as a communicator. Your overview of fear, relief, excitement, togetherness, the pros and the cons of this whirlwind that we've had was a great way to start our meeting with our speaking portion. We couldn't have planned this better with the way that we wove it. We didn't communicate in advance about what the speech topics would be today, but I thought it was fantastic, all three. You excel at so many tools in your toolbox, as we all know. Your inflection, your mic use, word of the day, your organization. It's challenging to find suggestions for a distinguished Toastmaster. For our guest, John, a DTM or Distinguished Toastmaster is the highest point in some ways that a Toastmaster can reach internationally. But we go farther here at Lockport. You may want to work on possibly your volume. A couple of times when you had impact to say something, dropped your voice just a few arms, and it was a bit challenging to hear. I challenge you to watch the recording. I challenge all of us to watch the recordings of today so we can see what worked, what didn't work, how is this going to help us, and how is this going to be something we need to improve upon. Perhaps work on ganas, gana, but your casual language connects with us. And so that's a balancing act we all find. Some not paying attention wouldn't even notice that at all. But overall, of course, Gerald, you're such a good friend. You're such a good part, a pillar of our club. Thank you for spearheading our speaking today. Can't wait till next time. Thank you, Dr. Stevens. Back to you, Mr. I'll just stand right here.
No, Stand By Me wasn't out yet when the hound was out here. That comes later on. Our second evaluator this morning, please welcome back to the lectern, Mike Florio.
Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, and our guests from Big Smoke, Toronto. And especially Tracy. Wonderful speech this morning, Tracy. I feel your pain. And it was really an excellent speech for here because we're going through the same things. We're going through the same issues, and everybody brought everybody in very quickly, and they related to kind of what you were going through. I wasn't sure in the beginning exactly where you were going because you kind of went a little bit off the rails with your off the cuff, but that just shows how relaxed you are, how comfortable you are with the lectern, and you brought in some humor, which is always excellent. Very relaxed, very good hand gestures. You had a little issue with the mic, but you skated right over that with no problem. We learned something today, and that's what I like about this speech. The 4 styles: competitive style, accommodation style, compromise style, and collaborative style. Everybody came out of this speech with maybe learning a little bit more about how to negotiate, and that was great. I think when you went off the cuff and started talking about your experience coming up the elevator, that you may have kind of run out a little bit of time. And I think when you do that, when you sometimes go off the cuff, you tend to hurry through the speech a little bit. And then you're just trying to get through to make sure you get all your points across, which you did. And normally I think Margot would say, get 3 points out there and repeat them, and then you're done. But you got 4 out, so that was good. You had a few kindas and gonnas, but that happens. But you were so relaxed that it didn't even matter. So wonderful speech, and point that guy out to me.
Yeah, seriously.
I might have to punch him in the nose. Just a touch.
Thank you, Michael. We have to call the president back to the lectern once again. It's Tom Troutwine. He will stand and deliver in person his evaluation. Please welcome our president, Tom Troutwine.
All right. Give us a story. Make it impactful. And bring us in and get us engaged. Well, you definitely thought about it and picked a story that did that. It has beginning, middle, an end, and a mystery at the end. I liked it all. I enjoyed the story. It got me so engaged, I forgot I was evaluating you. And I halfway through your speech had to go like, oh darn, I got it. Now I have to stop paying attention. But you drew me back in more than once where I stopped writing. And I'm like, oh darn, I gotta start writing again. So my notes here are a little bit sparse. And I had a little trepidation about coming up here and giving you feedback. I liked the fact that you had so many oh no moments. Oh no, the leaves are flipping upside down. Oh no, this is gonna end. Oh no, big hail. And you used hand gestures, stand in the rain. So we kind of got a sense of not so much verbally, but visually of how much danger there was. Or maybe not danger. Better word for that, would be, I don't know, I'd have to look it up. That's what you did. You looked up words like deluge. A deluge of rain. That is so descriptive that, you know you're soaked. You know that you walk in the house, you're not going to have a dry piece of clothing left. A deluge of rain. What I would have liked to have seen is 3 or 4 moments where you paused and got a little bit more in depth. Maybe use a different set of words or something to describe it again. I find that when you're trying to put a point across, saying it more than once usually is helpful and better. I'm not using very descriptive language myself, but hopefully the simplistic language is getting through. You definitely had the focus of the audience. And I want to say the best thing I liked was how engaged we were with your story. I don't think anyone is going to forget Phil, the place at the hail, and your vegetable garden is behind a wood pile. There's so much you shared as far as yourself as well. So it's almost like a personal moment with you. And I'm going to end with my favorite part is where you came up and you talked directly to the camera for just a moment. I think everyone needs to remember our people at home, and please take a moment in your speech to at least look toward the camera. Maybe we should put a little face or something, a piece of paper, or glaring. And that would be my evaluation. If you need more, I'll talk to you after the meeting. Thank you.
so much. All right, we're gonna call on our timer again because we time everything in Toastmasters. And to be eligible for the vote, you must make time. Michael Licata.
Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, and our guests this morning. All three of our evaluators qualified on time this morning. Catherine at 2:58, Mike at 2:28, and Thomas with the buffer at 3:09. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Michael. Thank you for leading the applause. I have a pen in one hand, a mic in the other, and I'm speaking into a lavalier. But this will all get ironed out in the future, I have no doubt, because we overcome things in AM Lockport Toastmasters, that's for sure. Now, while we're collecting the votes, and you can vote for all three, because all three qualified, the Hound not only he talked the talk on the air, on the radio, but he walked the walk. And he, in the 50s, he dressed every bit as outrageously as the artist that he was promoting, the rock and roll artists, for their outrageous clothes and haircuts and stuff that made parents half nuts. So he would be wearing these draped pants, incredible colors, bright red, bright orange, green, and he would be out in the trade. He would go to bars and restaurants. He would talk to his fans, and somebody uninitiated said, "Where did you get those pants?" And the Hound would look at one of his hound doggers, one of his special fans, and say, "He just doesn't get it, does he?" So he was quick on his feet as well. This is the point of the meeting where I want to introduce Jill Roaring. She is our general evaluator. She's going to evaluate the Toastmaster du jour and the evaluators. Please welcome Jill Roaring.
Thank you for not squeezing too hard. I got stung by a wasp there the other day.
Ouch.
Yes. My little finger is in pain. As far as valuations, I don't know that I could really find much wrong with any of them. I sat there and tried to evaluate the evaluators, and what I wrote down was excellent job, full sandwich approach for all three of them. I didn't see anything seriously wrong. I do have to say, when we had our little revolt meeting a few weeks ago, and I mentioned how I missed Marty's sliding across the floor and things like that, he lived up to it. He wasn't even there to realize I asked for it. And as far as the rain that day, Steve and I watched the clouds. We heard the thunder. We got 0.05 of an inch in Wilson. And that's the way the whole summer's been. It's dry as a desert down there almost. So that's my little commentary there. Evaluating Mr. Licata. Can't say much wrong about him. He pretty much knows what he's doing here. The jobs were all filled. He did pretty good on that one somehow. I will say we had no printed agendas, but seeing as this was our first time, yeah, he realizes that. I bet they don't get forgotten next week. And our little envelopes to be passed around for other members that was not there either. So, oh, hey, Deb Franco's here. Yay. And other than that, I don't have much to say. He did a wonderful job with all kinds of information, and I am too young for Hound Dog. So I don't have any recollection of him at all. I do remember KB radio and hearing about how it went all the way down to West Virginia and stuff like that at night.
Well, thank you, because that, you segued into my next little bit of information.
Okay, I'm gonna let you take back over again.
Thank you so much. Exactly. Hound's popularity was magnified by the fact that he was working at a 50,000 watt clear channel blowtorch called WKBW. Ironically, it turned into a rock and roll station. Before that, it was religious, and WKBW stands for We Know the Bible Works. So I thought that very ironic, and they would go on to be such a hardcore rocker. Like I said, he was driven out of Buffalo. He went to work at WJJL in Niagara Falls. And somehow, in some way, he was simulcast in Cleveland. This is the cake. My guest John Lambert's going to put the icing on the cake. But here's the cake. I suspect strongly that while he was being heard in Cleveland, I'm pretty certain that there was another disc jockey in Cleveland called Alan Freed, who perhaps ripped off George Lorenz the Hound. And Alan Freed has all the kudos. Alan Freed is known as the man that invented rock and roll. I don't feel that way because I'm a hometown guy, and for me, it's the Hound. But I had the privilege of attending an amazing lecture at the Buffalo Historical Society that was all about the Hound. And the Hound died too young. He was only in his 50s. But his son stood up because his son had inherited WBLK radio from the Hound. His crowning achievement is at the end, he owned his own radio station. And the son shared with the audience that had my dad lived longer, the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame would be where it belongs. It belongs in Buffalo. So if you're going to Cleveland for a Guardians game rather than an Indians game, that's a whole nother speech. Don't get me going.
That's a great name, Guardians.
And then they didn't check. There's a soccer team in Cleveland called the Guardians, and they're suing them. But that's another. Don't get me off track. Don't get me off the rails here. Or you're going there for a Browns game, and you have to drive by the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in Cleveland. Please grit your teeth like I do. Please. Now, I'd like to call on John Lambert to share. This is a little bit of a throwback. We went back to the 50s for the Hound, and now we're going to go back to I've Got a Secret. John, can you share with us your relationship to the Hound?
Mute here.
On you, John.
I did. Hi, everyone in Lockport, and fellow classmates, Phil Russell, and Dave. And Dave, thank you for getting me up at 7 o'clock in the morning. Appreciate it. George Lorenz was my, we called him uncle, but he was really my mother's first cousin. And growing up, it was always interesting to see Uncle George. And he talked like, yeah, man, the Hound's in town. Yeah, ooh, yeah, man. And like Dave said, he would go out to different places, the Dellwood Ballroom, wherever that is today, but I think it's more in the black section of Buffalo. And he would engage with people. And what I think he was most noted for is race music, whatever race music was. But race music was the music they didn't play on the radio. The music that when you got an album, it was a picture of a white swan and two white people embracing, but it was the music of Bo Diddley, of Chuck Berry, of Howlin' Wolf. He really, really embraced that. He was also friends with Elvis Presley. And little known that on the song Hound Dog, my Uncle George says for a moment, Hound Dog. And you'll have to play the record to know that. He was very instrumental in the time, and I think Dave is right. Maybe Buffalo wasn't big enough market or whatever. In Toronto, they do the story of Yonge Street. And when they talk about Yonge Street in the first episode, they talk about, and Toronto was a white, very white town at the time, not anymore. But they would talk about this disc jockey in Buffalo who they would get records from because you couldn't get records from black artists. Finally, one day, Uncle George came to me, and I think it was in '68. I was going to school at Canisius College. And he said, John, I just kind of want to run this by you because, you know, you're a young person kind of in the know. And he said, I'm thinking of starting a radio station. And it's going to be called WBLK, and it's going to be an FM radio station. And I said, Uncle George, don't you know that no one has an FM radio in their car? I don't know if this is going to be very successful. Well, obviously he knew what he was doing. And later, his son, Frankie, there were twins, Frankie and Freddie Lorenz, and my Aunt Rita, all owned that station. And I think they just sold it about 10 years ago. But I think Uncle George was really, really ahead of his time at appreciating the roots of rock and roll, like Dave articulated. He understood where it was coming from. And he is a white disc jockey. And I think at that time, all the disc jockeys chose their own music. That's why you hear all these stories about payola. Back in that time, if you wanted your record played, you paid these disc jockeys. They probably made no money anyways. So it probably was the only money they could make. Anyways, that's my story about my Uncle George. I still hold Lockport and Buffalo near and dear, even though I'm in Toronto. And I come back for many things at DeSales and at Canisius College. Dave and everyone, thank you for inviting me from Toronto to your meeting.
Hope my son Michael was timing you because that's your icebreaker. Welcome to the club. Great job, John. Thank you so much for helping me put the icing on the cake. Now I'm going to sign off with a hound sign off. But first I want to share this with you. The next time I'm Toastmaster, the theme might be Bob Wells. Bob Wells was a broadcast personality at the same time the Hound was around. The Hound was around. He would have used that. But Bob Wells had a little show on television on Saturday called Buffalo Bandstand. Guess who ripped him off? Think about it. All right, now. There ain't no more, son. It's splitting and quitting time.
You gotta call for a report.
Oh, my goodness.
You understand how this works?
Of course, thank you so much. Thanks, Mike. Well, that was a big ending. Without further ado, I'd like to apologize, but as a Toastmaster, I can't. We're gonna save the word master for last. I want everybody to chew on this terrible injustice about the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame being mislocated. That was the point of my theme. But we will start with the grammarian, John Lambert's schoolmate, Jackie Forgy. Oh, I mean Jackie Forgy Kenny.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. Don't tell us you're going to give us some filler. Just get right into it. Ding, And then you gave us a great word picture of the hound dog. Loved it. His clothing, his mannerisms, his big personality. I thought that was great. So you still get a star. Margot, you said one of the best innovations I could have done, and that didn't ring well for me. But you used the word innovations 3 times, which I thought was great. It's a good word. Gerald, I like that you said to bring the story to us in Toastmasters after people have their adventures. And Marty used a lot of wonderfully descriptive language this morning. But my favorite was the thistle was as sharp as a steak knife. That was wonderful. And that's my report. Thank you.
I'm Mr. Ryan Lord.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. This morning, our filler word of the day was brought to you by Tim Hortons. This morning, our Toastmaster did a very good job. Only one and then early sign off, which I don't know what that counts as, but it wasn't ideal. Larry, a couple of pauses, ands as filler words. Jen, you had a favorite a double Dr. Stevens, a couple of times, I have 3 counted. Tracy, 1 Thomas, a couple of filler words, I would consider them based on the speech, kinda and so, but. Marty, a few pregnant pauses, some of them I thought were very well placed in the speech, and some of them were kind of trying to find the next thought, so watch out on the pregnant pauses. Katie, 3 uhs. Mike, kinda so, watch the filler word there. And Jill, using pretty much as a filler, I counted it twice. So just keep it in mind, this morning was a filler word morning. Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster.
Good to be up here and shake hands again. It's Mark Campos time. And Mark, I'm so glad you're here in person, but I want to salute Mark because when we were Zooming, he had this great headset and the background was so terrific, and it put me in mind, going back to the 50s again, it was like Dave Garroway on the Today Show. Mark Campos.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters. Good morning once again. So tech has been the star of the show today, but let's get the gestures out of the way, shall we? They didn't really tune into those until real topics, truth be told. However, Larry was very animated, Margot, a lot of good gestures. In the speaking portions, Gerald, Tracy, very expressive. At one point, talking about cutting off, I like that gesture. Marty was extremely expressive this morning with his gestures, talking about clearing and rain coming down and all of that. Dave, good use of gestures. Kate, talking about the highest, I picked up on that, as well as Mike and Thomas, great job with the gestures. Now, on to the tech portion. I think out of the gate, the wheels may have wobbled just a little bit. The cameras were being moved, trying to position them just right. I know there were some audio problems initially with echoes and things like that, but it got better, and it seemed like we hit our stride. One thing I was looking at, and I had my tablet set up just so I could pan and look at different people, is that all the participants seemed to be engaged throughout the meeting. And that tells me they were able to see and hear pretty well, because if they weren't, I think they would lose their attention, and that would be obvious. Round of applause for the tech team that made this happen. I cannot imagine how much people went into this prior to today and this morning. And I can only hope that the setup becomes easier so that this is a more sustainable model, because it's got to be a heavy lift. So kudos to all of you that did. Thomas stole my thunder a little bit, though I think Marty wasn't necessarily looking at the camera. I think he was talking to his imaginary bush or that was growing. But you got away with it. You looked like you were talking to the camera. But I think when we talk from a technology standpoint, this is very difficult. There's 17 or 19 people, however many. You want to focus in on the people in the room, but there's people out there. And just the way sometimes we say maybe you talk to a person for a few seconds and then you talk to somebody else for a few seconds. Maybe you talk to the camera for a few seconds just to pull those people in. Can we settle one thing? How essential is the microphone? Because other moments in time, people didn't have the microphone in hand. Marty gave his speech without the microphone. So how essential is it?
Some soft-spoken people need it. That being said, we all seem to have forgotten how to use the mic. If you hold it down here, it's doing nothing.
That's a question for the audience on Zoom, I feel like. How could they hear us?
Yeah,
if we
they're
were-
actually hearing from this webcam here.
Okay.
So this is really for the room.
I got a lot of tech notes.
Jen's been busy.
Yeah. Okay. So to that end, I think if we're going to use the microphone and we're going to have the job holders all come up to explain what their job is, as much as it is possible, try to get a jump on coming up here as the Toastmaster begins to introduce you, just so we don't have that awkward pause in between, because we're so used to our job holders. You stand up, say what you have to say, you sit down, and we're moving right along. Other than that, I must confess, I had a lot of trepidation about this format. I was admittedly a skeptic, truth be told, because in my work experience, when we've had a bunch of people in a conference room and people on a Polycom conference call, it never works. But you guys have made me believers. And with
That's
that,
because you work at Verizon.
Doesn't mean we're good at it. Thank you for that aside, Lucy.
Can you hear me now?
I really wanted my theme to be a perfect summer day so I could hear Jen say, well, I don't really like perfect summer days. I did toy with that for a theme. Okay, going down the list here, let's see, how we doing? Well, it's time for the Quizmaster. Oh,
You can do that.
and I'm gonna, oh, there it is. Carol Ann, oh, that's why you're not in the room. That messed me up. Carol Ann Halstead.
My first question is, what did Jackie suggest that might draw attention to our meetings?
Sandwich board outside.
What year did the Hound start in radio?
1949.
It's 48 or 49.
48, when Dave was born.
Excuse
But
me.
I remember the Hound.
He started at JJL, and you're a Niagara Falls native, so for you, he was indeed 1948 in January. Go ahead. You're right.
It was mentioned 3 acts that he introduced. Can anybody name one of them?
I believe he introduced Elvis the first time Elvis came to Buffalo.
1974.
Well, the ones that were mentioned was the Everly Brothers, Sam Cooke and Clyde McFadden. Tracy mentioned how many styles of negotiation?
4.
And what was why was Marty doing the gardening? What was he getting the ground ready for his friend?
It's a
Playground.
Right. And I just wondered if anyone remembers what happened on July 20th, 52 years ago.
Happy birthday.
It was the moon landing. Okay, I have to run. Great meeting.
I'd like to say goodbye to Tracy. She actually has to go to work. I'm so proud of her. All right, now with great trepidation, I introduce Steve Smith, our word master. Go ahead, Steve. Come on up. Oh, stop right there.
You can do
I'm gonna aim the camera at you. See this little camera here?
Yeah,
you're on.
Yeah, you're on.
Good.
I am on.
Yeah.
You're good.
I don't get to go up there, everybody else
You can
does.
come up here if you want to. Attaboy, Steve.
Shake his hand.
That's an assertive SOB, my buddy Steve.
Yeah, you didn't want me up here. I missed this. Oh, picture. I missed this. I needed an audience. I like the reaction. This is a play off of. I think our word of the day did pretty good. A lot of people used it. Brian, Mark, Bill, Jim, Larry McKenzie, Mike Florio, and we got 3 people here actually used it twice. Jackie Kenny, Tom, and Kate. So I pronounce the word a success, and I say that with absolutely no trepidation.
Well done. Well, I've already used up my great close. So here to close the meeting is our president, Tom Trewine. Tommy! Trewine. Tommy!
Turn that.
About.
Yeah, go ahead, we'll do it next.
No, we have enough first, but look, we got it. We're good. The only thing is everyone forgot to put their names on the back of the tickets.
Oh, that was my bad. I forgot.
Okay, so anywho, that's just a.
Oh, yeah.
We're running over time, so I'm gonna actually be a little more authoritarian here and just say, shut up. All right, number 1, we do have ribbons. Did I not grab? Yes, I did. We have ribbons for the week, so please come up and get your ribbons. The table topics ribbon goes to Jackie Kenny. Evaluator for today is Mike Florio. Ribbons. All right, and our speaker for today was Marty Johnson. Winning ticket. There's quite a few. I have 25% chance of winning today.
Last 3 numbers, 966. 966.
Margot. Here's for Margot. Thank you very much. So next week we should probably have a printed itinerary for the meeting.
Sylvia's our Toastmaster.
Sylvia is our Toastmaster.
I do have it, number 1 agenda.
Okay,
What's your
excellent.
theme, madam? What's your theme?
She already gave it to me. It is medieval festival. So I may come dressed up as like a cleric or a knight or something to really hit the theme, I think.
Where are the numbers? The numbers.
Is there any other announcents for next meeting?
Yes, Jack, how you doing?
Yes, please. Let's hear from our guest, John. Is how he enjoyed the meeting?
Oh, he's muted.
He's muted. Okay.
He had a good time. He said.
He said he was on himself.
It was great to see everybody, Lock. I enjoyed it.
Thank you, Mike.
Oh, John.
John?
His name is John.
John. I can't read the little name. I don't have a good memory. All right, well, with that,
Stick around for post toast.
stick around for Post Toasties.
Phil has an announcement.
Phil has one announcement, okay?
Thank you. We see John live through the Zoom. which is great. Welcome to us. And over my shoulder, you can see where he is. That's a sunset with Toronto silhouetted, right? You can, over my right shoulder, you can see the CN Tower. Welcome, John.
Thanks, Phil. By the way, when you look back the other way, all you see is water.
We need to build a tower.
All right. And with that, I'm going to call this meeting closed.